I stand at the river's edge. Nothing beyond it has changed since the moment I was born, and since the first memories I have. I watch the green grass on the lonely maple tree halfway up the hill. I try to focus my mind. This is all I try to see. I let the image fill my mind, so I don't have to live in my current life. I refuse to look behind me. I refuse to smell the scent of smoke. All I can see are the flowers blooming under the maple tree, the birds singing, the same birds that they always were, birds that I don't have names for. I can remember old Bard telling stories, naming those birds, different sounds, had different names. I didn't always know how they looked like, but it didn't matter. It was a beautiful, beautiful sound. Old Bard used to tell stories of times of old, times before the war, and times before I was born. He used to say that I was the last child of old world. I never knew what that meant, and I might never know, because he will tell no stories anymore. There's nobody left. So I focus on the image in front of me, because I don't want to turn around. The whole village, it's gone. There's nothing left. It's all burned. No one survived. And when I finally turn around and I watch at the ashes, I walk by houses that I've known, or remains of them. I can see how they were when they were kids, laughing and dancing in the street. And adults doing their spring cleaning the mats, hammering them, washing the clothes at the river's edge, as they always did. But now there's only remains, and you can barely recognize them as houses anymore. I can't imagine where my road leads now. What is there for me anymore? It's the only world I ever knew was this village. The people in it. Old Bard, my caretaker. I had no parents. I had no family. My family was the whole village. They took care of me. They gave me food and shelter, and they kept me clean and alive. They kept me safe when I was sick, and took me in when I had nothing left. I have no idea where I came from, so I don't know where to go. This was my home, the only home I ever knew. Aunt Tina, the other children, Jack, Rickard, Bryce, and Rowley. Those were the kids I spent my time with ever since I can remember. We'd secretly cross the river and play under and in the maple tree. It was ridiculously big, and it made a perfect climbing place. And I never wanted to forget the image I have for the other side of the river, because that never changed. That part was never destroyed, burned. On that side, nobody was killed and had been done worse. And I never needed to see all of that on the other side. It was only beautiful. It was only summer and only happy memories. But you can't avoid everything forever, or anything. My Bod always used to say that never run away from your issues. And if you do, to choose a direction that won't kill you. Because whatever you are running from will eventually catch you. And when that day comes, you have to be ready for it, or it will destroy you. So I ran from the village, and I chose a direction. I didn't choose the happy other side of the river that was unknown, even though that was all I wanted to do. I chose to follow the road that went to the opposite direction of where the people who destroyed my village came from. I didn't know who they were. I had no idea why they did what they did. They destroyed everything I had. And all I could do was to move forward in some direction and hope that once again I'd find someone who would help me onwards. I did not feel like I wanted revenge. There was only sorrow in my heart for those lost and for the horrors I'd seen. I was lucky. I don't know, it sounds horrendous to say that I was lucky after everything that had happened. I'll never forget the burnt corpses of the villagers hanging from trees at the edge of the village when I left. But I was lucky because it was summer. There was food, berries, some apple trees while I walked, so I didn't die from hunger, and I was the only one who didn't die from the village. Something about leaving a message. I don't remember the words they told me. Those words are long gone, faded memories. But they left me untouched. Physically. But they destroyed me mentally. It took me 3 days. until I found a new village. For a while I thought it was burned as well. I saw the smoke. I was sure of it. I almost turned away. Almost ran away. Turned out, it wasn't burned. It looked rather lively. When I walked in, that was the moment I got angry for the first time. These people got to live their life. They laughed, danced around, light on their feet. And I had nothing left. My village, my home, they couldn't dance around anymore. They couldn't laugh. There was nobody cleaning anything there. Everybody was dead, burned, and destroyed. But these people, they were doing it all. They had everything I lost. Everything I lost. Everything. And I wanted it so bad. I wanted it so much. And I was so angry and jealous about it that I didn't talk to anyone there. I didn't stop. I entered the village and I continued on. I walked through it and past it and beyond it. I think somebody screamed at me. Somebody asked what was going on. I probably wasn't very clean sight. After 3 days of walking in rugged clothing, I must have looked quite wild. But I didn't stop. I continued onwards to see what's beyond the next hill and next turn on the road. I just wanted away from all the reminders. I didn't want to be angry anymore. I regretted that I didn't stop at the village and ask for help. Tell them what had happened. Tell them that what could happen to them as well. Because who knew? They could still destroy that village too. And it wouldn't be a happy ending. And if that did happen, I felt like it could have been my fault. I could have done something about it, but I didn't, because I was jealous and angry. And it burdened my heart just as much. Well, almost as much as everything that had happened. Because I could be the cause for it to happen again. I still remember the road, the fields, farms, farm animals. Sometimes hearing music from the farms. That was rare though. Music rarely existed. People didn't play instruments. Apparently old Bard used to. But I never believed it. My village heard music very rarely. Sometimes when a merchant passed by. But that was it. The memories were beautiful for those times. Everybody danced like they've never before had. They laughed, and they had a lot of joy in their heart. The fields and the green and the summer and the heat. It looked so odd to me. Because my mind was filled with death, darkness and fire, the smell of burning flesh, scream and cries of those I held dear. soon after the fifth day on the road, I saw a wall. It was tall. It was taller than any house I'd ever seen. Even the tallest house in my village was very, very tiny compared to the wall. It was huge. It made no sense to me. Like, how can something be that big? That wasn't a mountain. It looked like a mountain to me. Impossible. Unrealistic. I feel like I woke up that moment. I didn't remember the past 2 days much. A lot of that was gone. Well, at least my mind had wandered. I remembered the road and the fields, but I had no idea what I thought during that time. I guess I was kind of lost in myself. When I reached the entrance to the city, first they wouldn't let me in. I guess I didn't look so well. They thought I was sick, which I might have been. I don't really know. But I talked to the guard and I explained everything in a very hysterical way while crying and angry. And I don't think most of the words I said made any sense. But he listened to me and he let me talk my talk. And he believed me. And from there, he took me in. Not for himself, but he made sure I got food in my belly for the next few days. And I got cleaned up. I was not very old. I was 13, 14 years old. I had no idea of my true age. No one did. No one knew, even in my village, because I was found when I was a young kid, but nobody knew how old I was at the time. I have no memories from before the time I was in the village. Though when I was found, I could walk already, so there must have been something in my past that's beyond my knowledge. But it turned out that was the capital, and it was incredible. It was filled with wide, beautiful, huge buildings. Even the small ones seemed absolutely massive to me. They had orange, plated roofs. I didn't know, and I don't know, what material was used for those roofs. I was never told that knowledge, and I never asked. It never crossed my mind. Maybe it would have been useful, maybe, but I have no idea. I don't build roofs, so I don't know what I would have done with that information. It is way in the past now. I remember walking those streets and wondering the fact that I always thought that my village was large, big. I had a lot of people. I couldn't even remember everybody's name. But now I was in a place that truly had insane amount of people and was incredibly huge. It was massive and was way beyond my imagination and anything I could have ever imagined that existed. And even if somebody had told me, I would have not believed them. There was music. There was lights. There were things that didn't seem real. And all of it filled me with wonder. If my village had been in a place like this, all of that would have never happened. they wouldn't have been able to come over the wall. And through that thought, for the first time, I felt safe again. I felt like they wouldn't be able to get to me if I stayed in that city. So I went back to the guard that took me in, and I asked, how could I stay in here? Is there something I could do that ensured that I would be able to stay here? And there was few options. I could have chosen to enlist into the army and become a guard or a soldier. I remember asking what that meant, becoming a soldier. What would be my job? And the guard told me, and these words I will remember until the day I die, that a soldier makes sure that everyone else is safe. All those that he cares about are safe. He makes sure that those people can live in peace. And that those people don't have to feel fear of being killed by someone else. And that is why I chose to become a soldier. And I eventually ended being a guard for the city. And I made sure over the years that nobody, again, of those I cared about and held dear, would ever get hurt again. My job was never to kill others, it was to make sure that nobody killed those I cared for. Nobody harmed those people I cared for. I rose rank over the years. I ended up being a counselor and part of the King's Guard. And I had influence that I used for ensuring peace, driving for peace. I was always an advocate for peace over war. If there was a situation of war, I wanted to find a peaceful solution. It wasn't always possible, and throughout my years I had to see many burned villages and many kids, as I was, who'd had to face that horrible, horrible fate. And every single time it was crippling. And every single time I made sure that those kids were given the same care and a chance for a future as I was. Over the years, I learned that keeping others safe is a lot harder than you'd think. Keeping the peace is even harder. People tend to be jealous and angry. Those were familiar feelings for me. I always remembered how I'd ignored that village in my anger and jealousy. And even though that village never suffered the same fate as mine, it held heavy in my heart, because it could have. And that because of that, I made sure that I never did the same again. There was never an occasion in my life and in my career where I didn't make sure that somebody else was safe. I always made sure that they'd be safe. As an army man, I never really saw the world. I never really travelled, except when I got to the King's Guard and the King travelled. I was part of those travels, guarding his life. There was few assassination attempts during the travels that were never successful. We managed to stop them before anything serious happened. And unfortunately, throughout those years, I did have to take few lives. And I remember every single face. I lost their life through my sword. Every single one of those were regrettable. Every life mattered. And I never wanted to do it, and I tried to avoid it whenever I could. It simply wasn't possible. Sometimes there were occasions that it couldn't be helped. When somebody else's or multiple people's lives were in danger, that were important to me or someone else, I had to do my duty and protect them. And as a result, somebody else lost their life. And after I had my own kids, I learned that everybody is somebody's kid. For the first time ever, really occurred to me. And what I regretted the most about those people that lost their lives under my hand is that I took somebody's son away from them. And I took somebody's man, husband, away from them. Somebody's father. I took away someone that was important. To protect someone important to me. And I always thought it was selfish. But it couldn't be helped. And when I retired, the legacy I left behind me was a one sentence, really. A sentence I'd used over my career. To new recruits, to my children, to those I cared for. It was something very simple, but something I truly believed in. And it was the words of the bard, the old bard, the words he told me. It was one of the last conversations we ever had. And he told me to choose. He said that there is no life without regret. But choose the regret you can live with. And now I realize it is exactly the same as choosing, if you ever run, choose the way that won't kill you. The way that don't kill you is the regret you can live with. The regret and the weight of the regret that you can carry throughout your life. Because regret isn't something you can take back. It will be there until the end. And those are the words I lived by. And I hope that those words live by those I left it with as my legacy. Life is no life without regrets, but choose the regrets you can live with.